It's an honor to have Carlos, and please, you are welcome.
Well, good morning, everyone. I was saying good morning to everyone, and thank you for the presentation, and thank you for inviting me to do this opening speech of this interesting conference. No? I'm going to talk about social dialogue in times of rising inflation, which is a burning topic. So congratulations to the organizers, because you are tackling the right theme. No? I'm sorry, but I'm going to center a little bit on the Spanish case because it's the one I know better. But I'm sure you can do a lot of comparison with the Spanish case with your countries that can be very worthy. Going into my first, this is very sensitive, into my first slide, well, you all know that we once again are facing an energy and affordability crisis. I have put here, draw two graphs of two energy markets, the oil market and the natural gas market, and I have represented the surge in prices of the Ukraine crisis that you have is the blue line, and then the Iran crisis, that is the red line. As you can see, in the oil market, we have an increase in prices very similar in both of after the invasion of Ukraine and after the attack of Israel and the USA on Iran, and the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. No? But if you look to natural gas, no, here is different the picture. No, we didn't have that significant surge on prices that we did have after the Ukraine invasion. No, and well, this is a little bit shocking at the beginning, no, because through the Strait of Hormuz, it goes 20% of LNG, no, liquid natural gas, no. But the reason behind this is because natural gas market are not as integrated as the oil market. That's the reason why we didn't have that significant surge in the prices of gas as we have after the supply of Russian gas was cut. Anyway, the conclusion from this first slide is that a rise in price of an essential commodity, as is gas or oil, on which a country depends, results in a welfare loss for that country and in a welfare gain for a foreign producer. No? And my speech is going to be about how we absorb and distribute in our economies and societies that welfare loss. The first agents that try to absorb and distribute this welfare loss is the government. No? Government elaborate a macroeconomic response to this inflation spike, and the aim of this answer, of this response, is to avoid an inflationary spiral. No? We economists divide this impact in two effects, this first round effect and a second round effect. The first round effect is just the increase in the price of the oil barrel. No? That in the last week we have a price of $110. Now it's a little bit lower. Hopefully it will come down, no? But we don't know what is going to happen next. Because we don't know how it's going to evolve, the crisis. No? For this first round effect, what the government tried to do in order to absorb it, in order to cushion it, is they reduce taxes, no? Taxes on consumption. No? They reduce the VAT and they reduce the taxes that are levied on gasoline and electricity, and they also offer transfer to those companies and to those families that are more exposed to energy prices. And then comes this second round effect. The second round effect is when economic agents try to pass down the line this increase on their costs. and they try that other pays this increase or the cost. Here, what the government do next, also sometimes the government do these two things simultaneously. They reduce taxes, and also what they do, they try to diminish, to weaken the position of those agents that have power of bargaining, no? Like, for example, landlords versus tenants, no? That's the reason why we are seeing, like, for example, in Spain, we are trying to cap the increase in rent, and we are trying to extend rental contracts, no? In order to protect tenants against landlords. Another things that governments do is try to diminish the market power of some companies, no? That they even have the ability in these troubled times to increase prices above the cost. No? This is what is called profit-led inflation, and some experts call this greedy inflation. No? So this is there are some other measures that governments take in order to try to avoid this negative effect on inflation and try to distribute and absorb, no, this loss of welfare. No? The last one, and the one that I'm going to center, is collective bargaining and social dialogue. That is the way that employers and employees try to share the burden of this loss in welfare. No? But before going into that, let me go through this. No? This welfare loss is absorbed and distributed among different social groups and economic agents. No? Some person can be in several of these groups. No? Like someone could be an employee and also a consumer and a tenant. No? But consumers, some of them try to absorb and avoid this loss of welfare using different strategies, like, for example, to change their consumption patterns or their consumption behavior. So, for example, in Spain, after the Ukraine invasion and the surge of inflation, some families just quick consuming olive oil, and they went into sunflower oil that was cheaper and that was a way to avoid inflation. No, also maybe of course welfare was affected, no, because olive oil it has a higher quality than sunflower oil. So producers also develop strategies to try to avoid this welfare loss, and they do what is called shrinkflation, which means to offer a lower quantity of a service or of a product to the same price, no? Which is not good for client, but it's a way, it's a strategy to avoid this welfare loss. No? Pensioners and beneficiaries of public transfer also, they can suffer inflation if the pension, scholarship, or grants are not indexed by prices. No? For example, here in Spain, pensions are legally tied to the consumer price index, to CPI. So retirees here are protected from inflation processes. Taxpayers also can suffer inflation because of this fiscal drag in the income tax, which if the brackets of the incomes are not indexed by inflation, they will end up paying higher taxes in real terms. And there are the others that I have gone already over there: landlords and tenants, employers and employees, and the government answer. No? Let me move, before moving into collective bargaining, no, and social dialogue, let me use the next two slices to tackle a methodological important thing, which is how we measure purchasing power in wages, but also in other household incomes. No? The conclusion is that we have a pretty big problem in properly measuring household purchasing power. Here, wage, I have we have two sides here in order to do the measures, in order to do the math. On one side, we have the wages, and the other, we have the prices. Here, if we look at the wages, no, and I have drawn here two lines. One represents the average wage evolution in the Spanish economy, and the other is the payroll salary measured through labor price index. How we calculate average wage is very easily. We add all the wages that an employee pays, for example, in a firm, and divide it by the number of employees, and we have the average wage. But the labor price index is something more complex and more useful, and it's the one that we should be using. Although in the international comparison, we use average wage. A labor price index is like the CPI, it's like the consumer price index. It's a fixed basket, no? In this case, it's of jobs that we follow along the time, no? So we can measure only the pure change in wages. It's like the CPI, no? That we follow the same basket, no? Of goods and services, so we only measure the pure change in prices, no? And the difference between one and another, no, why the average wage has grown faster than the payroll salary, is because of the change in composition of employment. No? In an extreme scenario, the average wage could grow without nobody gaining more money. No? And the reason is because we are creating employment, a high-paid employment inside an economy. So the problem is that when we do international comparison, we don't have these LPI indices to do the comparison. No? Eurostat doesn't have it. The United States has an LPI. Spain has one, and Portugal, but not, at least, I know that no other countries had it. No? So we need to ask to Eurostat to elaborate a labor price index equivalent to the CPI that we have. If we move now to the other side of measuring purchasing power of wages, which are prices, again here we have a significant problem, and is that if we want to do properly, I'm sorry, I have to move to the price slides. No, if we do the math properly, we need to use a cost of living index, and the HCPI, the Harmonized Consumer Price Index, is not a cost of living index. Important parts of household budgets are outside the scope of HCPI, like, for example, housing purchase or the cost of money. No? Not everything is, can be by just putting the cash over the table. No? Sometimes you have to ask for credit for installments purchase. No? So the conclusion here for these two slides dedicated to the methodological issues is that in a context of increased housing prices that we are suffering already that in many European countries, and interest rate that we don't have it yet, but maybe in a few weeks the ECB will raise interest rates, the available statistic overestimate the wages purchasing power, no? Because of this methodological issue that I have pointed out. Okay, going back into the core of the presentation. Sorry about that methodological pause, but how to manage and share an external price shock in the workplace? Well, is through collective bargaining, no? And the reason to do this is because we want to avoid dismissals, and because we want to avoid or we want to moderate the purchasing losses, no, in the workplace, no. In order to have a good collective bargaining to do this, we have to tackle these four themes, no. Information available for negotiation. What information we have available for negotiation, balance in the distribution of bargaining power, coordination among bargaining units, and assessment and adjustment of agreement. I'm going into depth to each one of these points. No? The first one is about information, and we are lucky here in Spain because we have this business profit margin observatory, no? That is elaborated by our tax agency. No? They elaborate it based on the tax declaration of companies, so it's a very reliable information. No? We can calculate through it the gross profit and the margins of benefits. The margins of profit, which is the gross profit divided by the sale, which is what I have drawn in the graph, no? The evolution of margins, no? Which is, I repeat, gross profits divided by sales. No? I have put the math of the graph of how to calculate gross profit, but I'm not going into that. No? I just leave it there. If someone else wants to go into that after the conference, I will explain it. No? Anyway, you can see there that we have a significant surge in profit margins since the invasion of Ukraine. No? We have it in the total economy, and also if we take away, we erase from the statistic the energy companies. So it's not only a problem in the energy companies. There are some other companies that are raising final prices at a more rapid pace than their cost. That's the reason why we have a surge in profit margins. No? This is what is called profit-led inflation that I have referred before, and some experts call it greedy inflation. Okay, one thing we want to do, and Oscar was referring to us before, and we haven't get it yet, but it's written in the government agreement of the Spanish coalition government, is that we want to send the information that we have in the observatory to the tables of negotiation of the collective bargaining. No? And we can do that because the general treasury of the Social Security knows which companies are included in each collective agreement. And this is a big improve, because knowing which companies are included in each sectoral collective agreement, we can tell to our tax agency to aggregate the economic information about sales, cost, benefits and margins, no? And send it to the tables of negotiation. This will give very good information, official, updated, complete, symmetric for both sides of the table, and this will lead to better agreements, to a better way to distribute this welfare loss. That means a surge in the price of essential of energy prices. No? So that's the idea behind this. No? This should be the next step, no? In order to enhance collective bargaining in Spain. No? If I move now to the next topic, no? To tackle the next one, no? Which is the balance in the distribution of the bargaining power, I have drawn in this graph the evolution of prices measured by the CPI, the inflation, is the gray line, and the red line is the agreed wages in collective bargaining. As you can see, collective bargaining having been very affected in terms of protecting workers from inflation, although agreed wages has been recovering purchasing power after 2022 inflationary shock, but in 2026 they began to lose purchasing power again because of the crisis we have in the Middle East. No? Which is the reason behind was the reason why agreed wages haven't been very effective in terms of protecting workers. No? Well, it's not the coverage of collective agreement. We have a significant coverage of this agreement. 92% of workers are covered by a collective agreement. The problems are the other two below it. No? Is a lower unionization density. No? Only 10% of workers are members of a trade union, which is a very small percentage. And also still we need to change our labor regulation, because still we have a regulation that doesn't provide a level play field between employers and employees. Still the play field is unbalanced and give more power to employers when it comes to distribute any profits or losses or any increment in productivity. Here you can see how minimum wage purchasing power has evolved in comparison of agreed wages of negotiated in collective agreement. As you can see, minimum wage has increased significantly its purchasing power at 32% since 2018. In the same period, agreed wages, they have reduced 1% their purchasing power. No? Well, the reason is that here, like in many other European countries, the minimum wage is established, is fixed by the government, no? And the coalition government has been very pro-minimum wage. Because of this significant gain of purchasing power in minimum wage, and also of a strong increase in employment and stabilization of labor contracts because of the 2021 labor reform, we have a significant reduction in inequality and poverty in Spain. You can see in the graph on your left that we have a reduction in poverty in one of the three, on those three indicators of poverty: risks of poverty, low work intensity, and severe material deprivation. We are at the lower level of the whole statistical series. No? And on the other graph, you can see a reduction of inequality on the distribution of income measured by the Gini index. In 2024, we have the lower level of Gini distribution. Another significant figure and change in the Spanish economy is that we have had a significant increase of employment and at the same time, simultaneously, a productivity. And this is something unique. For many years, we haven't had this, no? So this is something we have to be also happy about it. The reason behind this improvement in productivity, in the reduction of the indices of poverty, in a better more equal distribution of income is the new economic policy approach of the Spanish government. Traditionally, the recipe that the Spanish government has followed since 1980s was that we need, in order to reach full employment, we need to beg for low labor costs and highly flexible labor conditions. This approach never succeeded in reducing high structural unemployment, nor did it solve the underdevelopment of our business sector. And so the coalition government just did the opposite. No? We raised significantly the minimum wage at 66% since 2018. We also reduced the temporary employment rate in the private sector that has been cut almost in half to a 15% because of the labor reform of 2021. Together with the European funds of the Next Generation EU and the strong commitment of renewable energies of the coalition government, these policies has redirected investment and capital towards a more productive and efficient business model. So, and the outcomes of these policies are very remarkable. No? Spain's economy growth has remained strong and resilient despite a European context of stagnation and rising tariffs for international trade. Employment is at record high. Unemployment is now in a single digit, below 10%. Spain is not any longer the EU country with the highest unemployment rate. Spain's external balance has been in surplus for the last 13 consecutive years, so we are reducing our external debt. Tourism revenues are at a record high, and non-tourist exports are even higher than the incomes that we are getting from tourism. The number of firms is growing across all size categories, but the average firm size is also increasing. No? Population is growing due to a significant influx of immigrants. Actually, the government just approved in the last Council of Ministers a big regularization of immigrants, no? An electricity price in Spain is among the cheapest in Europe thanks to renewable energy, and this is attracting a lot of foreign investment. If I go now into the other topic of collective bargaining, which is the other two last topic, which are coordination among bargaining units and the assessment of agreements, no? Well, the aim of coordination is that everyone moves in the same direction, no? And the direction has to be to moderate, to prevent or at least moderate the second round effects to avoid inflationary spirals. Inflation, as you know, may rise because of an increase on the cost of essential commodity or wage, an excessive monetary supply that will push prices up, or profits-driven inflation that I have referred before as greed inflation, a decentralized collective bargaining conducted at the company level lacks of macroeconomic coordination, whereas a centralized bargaining is better able to provide this macroeconomic coordination. Spanish collective bargaining has a high degree of coordination through national interconfederal agreements. The last one was the 6th ANC that went from 2023 to up to 2025. Right now, the social partners are negotiating the 7th ANC. However, this agreement lack of mechanism of adaptation along its terms, no? And this is a problem because we are living in a future that is very unstable and has a lot of uncertainty. So this is something that could be improved. My last slides, just 5 conclusions, no? The first one is that inflation shock triggered by energy prices imply a real welfare loss that could not be avoided, only distributed. And this is the problem we have to tackle with our policies from the government and from collective bargaining, you know, and social dialogue. Statistical indices used to measure purchasing power need to be improved at national and European level. Better information for negotiation, stronger coordination across bargaining levels, and periodic assessment of agreements are key in this process. Public policies also plays an important role by protecting vulnerable households, tenants, and supporting firms during the shocks, the firms that are more exposed to energy prices. And the Spanish case shows that there is still room to improve information and to combat greed inflation by the economic policies implemented by the government has helped to preserve social cohesion and support resilient growth. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. I think, this confirmed that I was totally right in inviting you to open this final conference, because I think he has provided an excellent perspective of what has happened from an insider's view in a way, because he has been involved in some of these policies. And I think that, I have some points that were particularly, maybe you can sit if you want to, for just not for you to stand. There is this idea, I think it's particularly interesting to think about kind of a continuous incomes pact that could be achieved by facilitating information to negotiators. Because we tend to think about incomes policies and incomes pact like emergency solutions. When there is a crisis, then there is a need to sit and negotiate and find a new equilibrium in the distribution of income between employers and workers. But the idea here is, okay, if we manage to have that information available, every round of negotiations, every round of collective bargaining will have all the information necessary in order to make decisions regarding wage setting that are totally adequate, or at least adequate to the economic context facing. so that, that will solve part of this need to, from time to time, try to see it. I mean, here in Spain, this is something that the government tried actually to sign a tripartite incomes policy agreement in the early stages of the increase in energy prices. It didn't work for several reasons, but I think it's very interesting that by allowing the information to be available for negotiators, then this will ensure, in a way, coordination, but also the adaptation of collective bargaining to different economic environments. So I think that's a very valuable point.